taking vine-ripe, juicy summer tomatoes and turning them into a fresh tart for the summer. Well, it sounds like a good idea, but as Christie's going to show us, it's not as simple as it seems.
No, Bridget, these tomatoes are super juicy, which is a blessing and a curse.
We love them.
Yes, we love them, but it makes it difficult to have a tart dough not get soggy.
Right, it turns into cereal
Right.
with milk.
And we don't want that.
No.
So we have to manage the juice for this tart. So the first step is to get rid of a lot of it. The second step is to waterproof our crust so that any remaining juice won't make the crust soggy.
Gotcha.
So we're using a really simple pastry dough to start.
Okay.
I have 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour and ½ teaspoon of salt. I'm going to mix this up, process it for about 3 seconds just to get it all worked in. Now I have 10 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I've cut it into ½ pieces and chilled it so it's nice and cold.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to pulse this because we don't want to work it too much, but we do want to get some nice coarse crumbs.
Okay.
So about 10 pulses. I think that looks good. Now I'm going to put this into my large bowl because I don't want to work this down anymore.
Because the food processor might activate too much gluten, and we want a tender, but something that's still going to hold together, right?
Right. So now it's time to add some water. I have ice water here, and I'm going to add 6 tablespoons, just drizzled over the top to get us started. All right, so I'm just gonna stir this together. It's super easy. You know, I should be able to press it and have it compact and stick, kind
Gotcha.
of.
So it's not wet at all.
No, it might be a little on the dry side. A little on the dry side will come together when it hydrates in the fridge. Too dry and not sticking together at all means we need a little more water. So I can add up to another tablespoon of water if I need it.
Gotcha.
Okay, that looks like, you can tell just by pressing it, it's holding together.
Yep.
So, would you mind giving me a little sprinkle of bench flour, just so it doesn't stick? Thank you. So I'm take this out of the bowl, and I'm gonna work it into a 4-inch disc.
You're not rolling it out at this point.
No, this is just to get it into the refrigerator so it can chill and hydrate all the way. So just wrap this tightly. Now we'll let this chill for about an hour. If you wanted to make it ahead, you could let it chill in the refrigerator for up to 2 days, or we could freeze it for up to a month. Bridget, the dough's been chilling for 30 minutes, so it's not done yet, but it is time for us to get started talking about tomatoes.
Okay.
So I have 1.5 pounds of tomatoes here, and the cool thing about this tart is that you can use any kind of tomatoes you want. Mix of colors, the sizes don't have to be exactly the same. Remember, this is chilled out. Like, we're not getting all fussy about this.
Whatever kind of tart.
As whatever as we can be. These are some nice heirloom tomatoes. I have a yellow one, some beautiful red tomatoes. They all work.
Okay, great.
So I'm gonna start by cutting out the core with my paring knife. And I'm just gonna cut this into 1/4-inch slices. They should be the same thickness of slices, just so everything bakes evenly.
Gotcha.
So if they're not all the same size tomatoes, that's okay, but we want the same thickness. Now, we discussed before the juiciness of these tomatoes. We want to get some of that juice out. The way we're going to do it is by adding some salt. So this is a teaspoon of salt. The salt will draw the moisture out, and it also seasons the tomatoes. We'll just give this a stir. And you can see it's already starting to draw some of the moisture out. But it's going to take a while to get as much out as we need.
Okay.
So I'm going to transfer this whole operation to my colander inside a bowl. You could put it over the sink if you wanted to, because we're not going to do anything with this juice. We're going to let this sit for 30 minutes. And if you do your math, that means that the tomatoes will be ready just about the same time as the pie dough will be ready. Bridget, it's been a little over an hour, so the dough had time to chill, and during that time, our tomatoes have had a chance to drain.
Okay.
So I actually pulled this dough about 10 minutes ago, so it would soften slightly, so it's a lot easier to roll out.
Right, because if it was too cold, it just breaks.
It breaks. So I put a little bit of bench flour down on my surface, not too much, we can always add more, and I'm gonna roll this out into a 12-inch circle.
Okay.
It's nice and soft now, so I'm just gonna make sure that I keep turning it and I keep flouring my surface if I need it. Even though it looked a little bit dry when we put it in the refrigerator, obviously it's super supple and nice to work with now, no dry bits. So let's check this.
What
12 there. 12 there.
Come on.
I can't help it, Bridget, sorry. You roll enough doughs, you know what 12 inches looks like. So I'm just gonna roll this up on my pin and use that to transport. If it did overlap a little bit, no problem, because we're gonna fold this up.
Right, galette style.
Right, so that fits really nicely. So let's move on to filling. Our tomatoes have been draining. Now just take a look at how much juice came out of the tomatoes. Now, split that up for me.
You bet.
Awesome. So I have some savory elements to add. This is 1 shallot that I've sliced into rings.
Okay.
Nice and thin. We'll have little slivers of shallot that will be really nice in here. I have 1 clove of garlic that I've minced, 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, a little bit of richness. This is a teaspoon of minced fresh thyme, half a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. So we'll just give this a toss. We want this to look pretty on the tart too, so we don't want to mangle the tomatoes. You just want to toss it gently to get everything mixed in. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so to keep on that savory theme, I have 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard, and I'm gonna spread that right on the tart. You can just use the back of your spoon.
A little goes a long way.
It does. And notice I'm not taking it all the way to the edge because we're gonna fold that up. So I just wanna leave about 1.5 inches of a border. Okay, that looks good. Now, it is not a crazy notion to put cheese in a tomato galette. It's the choice of the cheese that we're using that's a little unorthodox.
All right.
I have 3 ounces, that's 3/4 of a cup, of shredded Gruyere cheese. Oh, I love it. It's so nutty and tangy, but it's also an aged cheese. So while it's going to melt, it's not going to add any moisture to the crust. So it's actually going to create kind of a shield to effectively waterproof the crust. So when we put the tomatoes down, they won't sog it out. All right, our barrier's down. Now these are ready to go in. So I'll just start at the edge of the cheese and I'll overlap the tomatoes slightly.
Look how beautiful.
Aren't they pretty? And you know, there's all this other goodness in there too. So, you know, you'll get some pieces of shallot, dollop them over the top. And if you have some imperfect pieces of tomato that you've been a little too rough with, put them on the bottom layer. I have some pretty yellow ones here, so I'm gonna put those closer to the middle.
Beautiful.
Now, there's always room for more cheese, which is my family mantra.
It's going on my gravestone.
So we have the Gruyere on the bottom, shredded. That's our waterproofer. Now I'm going to add another aged cheese on the top, which is Parmesan. And like the Gruyere, because it's aged, it doesn't have a lot of moisture in it. So it will actually kind of help suck up some of the juices from the tomatoes and just give us a nice slightly brown topping. Now we're ready to fold. So I'm just gonna start folding my crust up just so that it extends about 1 inch over the tomatoes. And about every 2 inches, I'm going to make a little pleat. And the pleat is going to give us a nice shape, and it's also going to help keep everything in.
And the dough is supple enough that the pleats are sticking to each other.
Yes, but we wanna make it look more perfect. So I have a large egg that I've beaten lightly. We're just gonna do a little egg wash around the crust. Give it a little shine, fancy it up just a little bit. Okay, my oven's set at 375. I'm gonna bake this until this beautiful crust is a nice golden brown and the filling starts to bubble a bit. And that's gonna take 45 to 50 minutes. Oh my goodness. Juices are bubbling. The crust, see how shiny it is?
It's beautiful.
Oh boy. So it still looks a little juicy on the inside, and that's okay. So we're gonna let this sit in the pan on the rack for 10 minutes, just to kind of let everything settle in. Then I'm gonna use my metal spatula to very carefully get underneath the crust so that I can shimmy it off of the sheet pan and onto the rack directly so that we can get the crust nice and crisp so it doesn't sog out. 10 minutes in the pan, 20 minutes out of the pan. Bridget, we've been waiting way too long. Now, one last thing. We wanted to add just a little bit of freshness to this. So I have some fresh basil leaves, and I'm just gonna give it a chop, nothing fancy. We don't wanna add this while the tart is still too warm. It'll discolor. So I want about a tablespoon, sprinkle on top. Now technically this feeds 4 to 6.
I imagine this is accompanying other things on the table, right?
Right, this would be lovely with the salad. It looks so pretty. Did you hear that little bit of crispness when I sliced it?
I did, it's a good sound.
Clean slices.
Yep, what's remarkable is you didn't fuss over it too much when you were making it, and it still looks like that.
Oh, I just got the Gruyere.
I got a little nutty Gruyere. Got a little bit of that soft shallot. The shallot just kind of melts right in there.
It's nice and soft.
The tomatoes are still supple. They're not dry at all, but they've given off a little bit of their juice in to mix in with that Gruyere. This is as good as summer gets.
I think so too.
Thanks for bringing it to us.
You're too kind.
This beautiful galette starts with a sturdy crust. Toss a mix of tomatoes with salt and then let them drain. Toss with shallot and herbs. Top the rolled out dough with mustard and Gruyere and then shingle those tomatoes on top. Sprinkle with parm and bake. Finish with a little bit of basil and serve. So from Cook's Country, the very perfect picture of summer, Fresh Tomato Galette. And you can get this recipe and all the recipes from this season along with tastings, testings, and select episodes on our website, cookscountry.com/TV. Merci. Thanks for watching Cook's Country from America's Test Kitchen. So what'd you think?
Leave a comment and let us know which recipes you're excited to make, or just say hi.
Now you can find links to today's recipes and reviews in the video description.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
See you later.
Alligator.